Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the CDL podcast channel. In this episode today, we're going to be updating our power rankings, talking about the matches from this past weekend, talking about some news and the crazy viewership we saw, and then we are going to do our predictions for next week's matches. If you guys enjoy this one, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. If you're on the audio platforms, drop a follow, drop a 5-star review. Let's jump into it, Brock. How you doing after this first weekend of matches?
Oh, doing pretty well. My LAG mates team, 0-2, but it's still early.
Yeah,
On
it was
that.
we were talking about how they may, be a team that could be in the middle of the pack. Obviously, still lots of time. Can't write them off yet, but not off to the start that any LAG fans were looking for. And we'll talk about it
hmm
in a little bit, but viewership wise, they might be the biggest fan base.
Yeah, yeah, the biggest viewership for the week this weekend for the
Yeah,
match.
they were dragging those numbers way up there. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but we want to start out, Brock. We'll kind of talk. We're doing it a little different this year. We're gonna kind of like experiment with something, and if we like it, we'll keep going. Maybe we'll switch it to something else. But we're gonna kind of like constantly update where teams are in our mind in the power rankings to maybe start off episodes. And with that, we'll like talk about how they were playing maybe during the week instead of diving into each individual match. Cause it's some time after the matches, it's harder to remember every exact detail, even when we're taking notes on it and stuff. So gonna try to do this year and we'll see how you guys like it down in the comments. So we'll just start with this. We'll just start moving teams around, maybe talking about their weekend. So I think everybody knows, Brock, our initial S tier, it's so early, so this is very reactionary moving teams around, but I feel like the S tier has got to shift.
Yeah, most definitely from what we saw.
We had LAT take out FaZe, and what was they denied a reverse sweep. FaZe tried to get the reverse sweep off on them.
hmm
Um, FaZe also just a shocking 0-2 weekend.
Yeah,
Them losing to LAT, kind of whatever. We said that's a complete toss up match. Like either team could win that. But them, Toronto, we view them as probably the fourth best team, but still definitely thought FaZe would be able to take them out.
yeah, most definitely. But little uncharacteristic for FaZe this past weekend. I don't expect them to do this really much again or ever again in a weekend.
Yeah, probably not. In this coming weekend, they have matches against Carolina, which Carolina looked pretty good. Granted, they maybe didn't play any like world beater teams this weekend, and then they have a matchup against Vegas. So if FaZe is somehow 0-4 after this coming weekend, look out, yikes, panic button, because that means they lost to Carolina. If they lost to them, it would still be bad because FaZe should be beating Carolina. But if they lose to Falcons, yikes,
Yikes.
look out.
Yeah.
But FaZe this weekend, uncharacteristic numbers from the likes of Selly and Brock. He on the weekend had a .96, which I couldn't tell you over the course of two series the last time Celium was even like negative. It's just kind of what he does. He just somehow always is frying.
Yeah. 0.96, usually at a 1.2, like religiously.
Yeah, even in like look at the numbers in hardpoint. Like Celium's at a 1.04, but like Simp and Abizi both in the .9 range. Draza .97. I feel like that's roughly like around a one for Draza is not like crazy shocking. He's going to play super fast. He's going to do a lot of the dirty work. But Sip and BC to both be below a one in the hard points uh, is very, very concerning. They were both pretty good numbers wise in control, which isn't shocking because they typically tend to be the best control team, and those two are just so good at the mode.
Mhm. Yep.
Um, but concerning numbers for sure, considering that they did end up losing both matches this weekend, especially that one to Toronto.
Yeah. Maybe, it's a good little wake up call for them, even though it's just the first weekend already here.
Yeah, and that's true. It could be a nice wake up call. You also had a team like OpTic losing to Boston, which I would say OpTic losing to Boston is a much more shocking result to me than FaZe losing to Toronto because both of those like OpTic and FaZe should be winning every match that's not against one of the other top three teams. I would say
Mhm.
that Boston beating OpTic is a much bigger upset than Toronto beating FaZe because we kind of viewed FaZe as somewhere in our top three and Toronto four. We viewed Boston as look at our power rankings on the screen here. We viewed Boston as the 11th best team ahead of only the Falcons, and we viewed OpTic as our second best team coming in. And Boston took them out.
Yeah. So, hope move on, hopefully, phase it. Like we know them, we'll be doing good. Same with
Yeah,
Optic.
I feel like they're gonna clean it up, but I guess for the sake of our S tier here, do we want to? I feel like we have to move LAT to the top currently. They
Yep.
look to be in the best form. We'll talk about them in a minute, but do we think we have to drop Phase and OpTic down into the A tier right now, just because both of them suffered bad losses against teams they should win. FaZe played a very tight series. It went all the way to a game 5, round 11 against LAT. So we'd be singing a much different tune if FaZe would have just won the last round. Like we came down to one round of Search and Destroy. Do we want to keep both these teams in S below LAT, or do we want to move them both down to A and just say LAT looks like the best team right now? We're going to keep them there.
I'm down to put Phase and Optic in A and keep LA in the S team for now for this week.
Okay. Let's do that. I feel like OpTic has to be ahead of FaZe just because, they were able to at least get a win on the board
Yep.
and dominate a C9 team in a controversial match. We'll talk about that when we
Mm,
talk about
yeah,
C9.
very controversial.
Yeah. But when it comes to LAT, we touched on FaZe. It's like people may move them way down their power rankings, but for me, like we're this power ranking is like very, very recency bias filled and like ranking the teams on where they are right now. My thing is like we still know this trio with Draza on FaZe. We know that this team is still going to be elite, and they just had maybe a bad week. It is uncharacteristic, especially because we usually don't see them lose like regular season matches almost ever.
Hmm. Yeah.
The fact that they went 0-2, is a little bit concerning, but I feel like this is a team I'm not concerned about at all. So we're still keeping them high up there
Yeah.
because I'm going to need to see a lot before I displace the top 3 teams
Yep.
as the top 3 points in the power rankings.
Yeah. Now, if they have another 0-2 weekend this next weekend, then we might have to start having some more conversations.
Yeah, like if we see Toronto Ultra rip it, does Toronto play 2 this weekend? They play Vegas and they play Miami. So yeah, Toronto will be 4-0 after this weekend, and most likely
Yeah.
playing Vegas and Miami, there's a very good chance Toronto's 4-0 at the end of this weekend. So Toronto's 4-0 and FaZe all of a sudden goes 0-2 or something. We could be looking at a very different conversation, but it's going to take a lot for me to move the top 3 out of the top 3 in the power rankings unless we see them really struggle, because I'm still convinced that if I saw FaZe play any of the bottom 9 teams that aren't OpTic or LAT, I'm still picking FaZe 100 times out of 100.
Hmm.
Same with OpTic. I'm picking OpTic to beat any team that's in the bottom 9 in our power rankings here. So I'm still sticking them
Yep.
ahead.
Agreed.
Now, Brock, before we get to OpTic, let's talk LA Thieves.
Do it.
What a weekend. They come out. The ping difference might have been an effect in the Cloud9 match. Either way, they come out in dominant fashion and win that one. And then, wow, I was like thinking after that map won against FaZe, I was like, is this team already just like the greatest team ever?
That
Like,
is 100-point club phase.
the crazy thing about the 100 point club too is it wasn't like a FaZe was just getting like 10 points a hill. Like at one point, I'm pretty sure it was like 70 to 50.
Jeez.
It was like 70 to 50 in that match, and it was just like they went on like just like a what was it, like a 180 to like 20 run at the end and
Yeah.
just dominated them and closed them out. And I can't even. When's the last time we saw FaZe red carpet? Everybody on FaZe below a 1 KD in that
Hmm.
series.
Yeah.
They had Simp 11-24 map one.
That's like you don't see that ever from Simp.
No, you don't ever see that. You're right, and like just the fact that they were able to dominate them and then they clutch up, they win around 11 on Skyline Search in the map 2 behind 10 from Envoy. And you're thinking, oh my God, is LAT just about to roll them? They blow them out 100 point club. They win around 11. FaZe is able to win the next 2 maps in very close fashion. And then LAT closes it out on a vault search and destroy. Um, but LAT impressed me because the thing that I noticed in like the difference between LAT in comparison to like what we saw from OpTic and FaZe this weekend that really separates them is the pace.
Yep. They're moving.
LAT was just playing at a blistering pace, and it's like kind of like Falcons. Just the lack of practice they have is insane. But like what we've seen from Falcons this past weekend was like it was so odd. Like they were like King of Body was the only dude pulling out a sub in some situations. Like they were trying to run like 4 ARs in hardpoint at some points.
Yeah, they're
Uh,
trying to create their own meta in a way.
yeah, that was very odd. But I mean, this LAT, this squad was just moving. The pace that they were moving at was insane.
Yeah, they're moving, but also like they weren't hesitating on any like play call that they had. It seemed like.
No, you could tell they were playing with confidence, really.
Yeah.
What it boils down
Yep.
to. They were playing with extreme confidence.
Like we heard that listening against C9, some choice words from people.
Yeah. Yeah, they were certainly sounding confident in that listening. And I mean, also Brock, I mean, what are we looking at here? Envoy with a 1.16. He was head and shoulders in terms of his Slayer rating and his respawn KD above Scrap and Ghosty. So like you're telling me slaying wise, we didn't even get to see the best Scrap this weekend, and this is what this team looked like. I mean, granted, I don't think I mean Envoy, excellent player, but I don't think he's going to be dropping 1.16s consistently
Yeah.
as an overall KD throughout the year. I expect him to settle back more around one, and I
Hmm.
expect Scrap to get much higher than 1.07. I could see, I mean, Ghosty's at a 1.03 overall after the weekend. I could see him, maybe bumping a little bit, but staying more around there.
Yeah.
But I
Hmm.
expect Scrap to pick up his slaying numbers a lot, and that is terrifying for the rest of the league. That this is what LAT looked like, and you feel like you kind of had like Scrap was definitely not bad by any means, but you feel like you didn't have like full on superstar Scrap this weekend.
Yeah. Definitely. You know, wasn't his full potential yet, and like you said, scary to just even think about if all these players are playing that good and that well together already.
Extremely scary that we're saying like Scrap with a 1.25 uh against Cloud9 and what was it, a 1 point or a 0.95 against Phase. 0.95 obviously not as good as we're used to, but like the fact that he was almost at a 1.1 and we're saying like we feel like he could get a lot better.
Hmm. Yeah.
I mean, the team won on the back of Envoy basically being the series MVP against Phase, which a lot of people would maybe venture to say Envoy numbers wise might be their worst player, and he was the one putting up the best numbers in the series.
Yep.
LAT is scary. They've got to be number one right now with the way they look.
Yeah. Just this, it's kind of cool to see how well they gel together already. They just formed not too long ago against this face team. Are already having a year under their belt with
Yeah.
each other.
Yeah, and you would expect them to only continue to get better as they start to get used to playing with each other.
Yep.
All right, Brock. The other team that we have up in A tier, we have them in the second place spot in the power rankings is OpTic Texas. They lose a brutal match to Boston, which is funny because I for some reason I just like missed this stat before the season, but I guess they haven't won an opening game since Cold War, like their opening match,
Yeah. I,
which is
I also saw that stat.
funny because like early Vanguard, they won the first event.
Hmm.
They were a very good team. Oh, that first match was the SAE, wasn't it? I think it was the rocker where Attach or whoever accidentally called in or Cammy.
Oh, NW2.
Oh yeah, that's NW2, not Vanguard. Yeah, my bad. So that was their first match of MW2. I don't
Yeah.
remember who it was in Vanguard, but they said that they hadn't won their first match since Cold War. Which that's why I was saying is kind of funny because like I mean I guess they struggled a little bit in the beginning of MW2, but in the beginning of Vanguard they were very good. They won the first event.
Hmm.
In the beginning
Yep.
of last year they were pretty good as well. Um, so very 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 interesting there. Lost to Boston is tough. They dominated Cloud9, but that Cloud9 series is very controversial because of the whole ping difference, which is really unfortunate that we are in a world and in a league where a team could be playing on like double the ping of the other team,
Hmm.
and then we're just said like we're told that they were just told to just deal with it. It's just brutal for the side of
Either
Cloud9.
either deal with it or forfeit, and it's like, well, all the Cloud9 players are putting all the work just to forfeit a match. So they might as well try and play it. Big differences
One,
was insane.
yeah, and your draw for the weekend is OpTic and LAT, arguably our two best teams, and you're playing on ping disadvantage. Like you're already at a disadvantage because your team's not as good. And then you're playing
Yeah.
on ping disadvantage. But we'll talk about them in a minute. Let's focus on OpTic here.
Yep.
I mean, they pretty much manhandled Cloud9. It was a domination. The hard point is a 6-3 in the search. It was a 3-1 in the control. It was an overall just quick, easy series. Numbers wise from OpTic, everything looks pretty good for everybody except Kenny. And I mean, everybody knows how I feel about Kenny. You're very high on Kenny as well. I'm not worried about Kenny
Yeah.
at all,
Yep.
especially because Kenny's team seemed to elevate around champs specifically, but I'm not worried about him at all. I saw some people like there were some OpTic fans, I guess, already complaining, which shocker. But
Yep.
I saw a lot of talk on Twitter about how they're like scared when they saw the pace that LAT was playing at. That like OpTic's not going to be good because like Kenny's not going to be able to keep up with that pace. And I guess I'm very
Mm,
confused where that comes from because Kenny has
yeah.
always been historically known in his position as like as a faster AR. And like
Yeah.
he's literally known like his like thing he's known for is to chow everything. and
Yep.
play very fast. Like, he's known for if he has a flaw, it might be over channeling sometimes.
Yeah.
So I'm very confused where
Definitely.
that comes from. I'm definitely not concerned about Kenny being able to keep up pace.
Yeah. And like I said, he's pulled a sub out before in past games, so not worried whatsoever. And it's still very early.
Yeah, I'm not worried at all. I mean, OpTic seems like they're bound to lose one of these random matches early on. I guess from what we've seen, they lose every first match. Sounds like. Um,
Hmm.
I'm not worried at all. I'm definitely willing to keep them in second because they were able to get a nice win against a Cloud9 team that we thought was going to be pretty good. Who knows at this point? Um, and they did lose a tough match to Boston. And then this weekend, OpTic has Vancouver Surge and the Gentlemates coming up. So two matches they definitely should win. Although Gentlemates look a little rough right now, but Vancouver, we'll talk about them. A team that I like the look of more than maybe I thought I would. But OpTic, I'm overall not concerned. Search and Destroy, you could talk about how could become an issue because they lost both of them to Boston and they were able to get a win against New York. I feel like Search and Destroy is always going to be the concern with this roster. If they're struggling, it's probably going to be in Search.
Yeah.
So that's like, I guess, like the one concerning thing you could say. But it's still early in the year. For the good teams or the teams that are really good on paper, it's harder to panic about them.
Yeah, because you just know eventually they'll figure it out and then they'll be just fine in the
I mean,
end.
especially when it's these teams. And by the way, I mean, we're kind of glossing over it because like we're talking more. They had a tough loss to Boston, but shottzyy was unreal in both matches.
Yep.
I mean, shottzyy, he looks to be, I mean, a lot of people were saying MVP, the game fits his play style, and he certainly looks to be a top candidate for it because he had a 1.87, 71 and 38 across that C9 series. And even in the series that they lost to Boston, he had a 1.25, 114 kills.
Jesus.
Yeah, shottzyy he was moving. He looks incredible in this game.
Yep. He's picking up where he left off for last year. Just, amazing superstar.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's just jump around, reorder the teams, how we want to move them around, and then we'll just kind of like jump team by team quickly so we can get into the other stuff we want to talk about.
Yep.
I think keeping Toronto at top of B is good. Some people may argue, they went 2-0, they beat FaZe, they should go ahead of them. I still think if they played a rematch right now, I'm still taking FaZe to win, even though I love this Toronto team.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think Toronto has to stay in fourth, but we're going to keep them in B. If we see another really good week from Toronto and a FaZe rough week, maybe we can talk about for right now. But people might not like this because they're like, well, Toronto's 2-0, FaZe is 0-2. How can you have them ahead of them? I need to see a bigger sample size before I'm willing to move FaZe below anybody but OpTic and LAT.
Yep.
Do you agree with Toronto staying fourth, though? Toronto showed me a lot this weekend. I really liked what I saw out of them. I think they're going to continue to get better. Beans, Clean X, Insight, all above a 1. Joe, he had some very good maps. Uh, especially in that Surge series. Just the team in S&D overall. I mean, 3 guys above a 1.2, Beans with a 1.05. The team looks very good. I'm very excited for them. They showed a nice ice factor winning game 5 round 11 against the Vancouver Surge, and they were able to take out FaZe 3-1. So just like really, you couldn't even ask for a better week out of Ultra.
Yep. Great week for Ultra. As me and you kind of expected they'd be pretty good, but I don't know how about the fans felt.
Yeah, I think overall the fans felt this team was going to be pretty good, and I expect them to be 4-0 at
Yep.
the end of next week. And I expect them to take out Vegas and Miami. I'll just say it right away. Those are two teams that they are better than. They should be able to take them out. Our next team, Brock, that we have listed from the beginning, Carolina Royal Ravens. We had them last week in 5th place in the B tier. I think I want them to stay in 5th place in the B tier.
Yep. I like it.
Now, they have a tough week. They play Atlanta and then they play C9, who we know if those server issues are fixed, C9 is going to be a formidable squad. Like, they're
Yeah.
not just some like garbage team. Even though they went 0-2, they played OpTic and they played Thieves, and we know that that team has a lot of talent. Like, they can be a good team.
Hmm.
When we look at the likes of that Carolina squad, where are they here? Slasher was putting up numbers this weekend. Slasher and Gwyn.
Yeah.
A lot of people their concerns about this team is they don't expect Slasher to keep putting up those numbers, which I mean, fair. I'd be shocked if Slasher, in this being his whatever, a long time he's been playing, he's dropping a consistent 1.2 the entire year. I'd be pretty shocked as well.
Yeah. Turn back the clock a little bit.
Yeah, and granted, they beat Falcons and LAG, who currently might be our bottom 2 teams, with
Yep.
Boston getting a win over OpTic. I still say, like, I was talking to our boy Jake on Twitter today about it, and like he was kind of saying maybe he's not as high on Carolina, maybe it could be a fluke. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I can 100% see why you could say that about Carolina because, like, yes, some of their players are kind of retreads. Like we've seen Slasher and Tej teams be mid for quite some time now. We haven't seen Vivid be on like a super successful team since like his Dallas Empire team in Cold War was like one of the tops.
Yeah.
Uh, so like I get where that's coming from, but at the same time, for me, like what I mentioned is like the game always speeds up as the year goes on. And I think this team is very uniquely equipped for the teams that are not in the top in the top 3. I think the Carolina team is almost one of the best equipped to handle like the game getting faster and faster because their flex player is Vivid, who's a natural sub and is one of the fastest subs, and Tej can speed it up big time on a sub. Gwyn can speed it up. Like I think this team is really built to play faster as the game gets faster and just have a steady main AR and slasher. I think this team's built for success. I want to keep them in B in the 5th spot, regardless of who they played.
Yeah. I like it.
We got to drop Cloud9, Brock. I know they had issues. I know they played 2 amazing teams, but I feel like we got to drop them.
Yep. Let's drop them for this week
I feel
with all
like
the issues.
I want to see Minnesota bumped up behind Carolina in the B tier.
I can get
Are
down
you
with
okay with
that.
that?
Yeah.
I want to see Seattle moved to the top spot of the C tier.
Yep.
I want to see Miami moved up behind Seattle in C.
I like it. Boston.
I guess we got to put Boston behind Miami. I still want to put Cloud9 ahead of Gentlemates,
Okay.
and we can keep Falcons in the D tier. So that would make our new order 1 down to 12. LAT, OpTic, Phase, or LAT S tier, OpTic 2, Phase 3, and A tier. In the B tier, we have Toronto, then Carolina, then Minnesota. In the C tier, it's Vancouver, Miami, Boston, C9, and then the Gentlemates. And then in the D tier, it's Falcons. So let's kind of dive into these. We moved Minnesota up to the 6th place spot in the B tier. They had a 2-0 week. They showed a lot of ice, which was a big thing. They won 2 game 5s. I feel like Minnesota
Love
teams
that.
for quite some time haven't had the ice.
Yep.
Uh, Interestingly enough, Brock, it's a red carpet for their team stats. Not a single person on the weekend had a positive KD. That was because they kind of got outslayed in some hard points. Overall in hard point, like Estriel had a 0.74 on the weekend across 4 hard points.
Not, needs to see that a little bumped up a little more.
Yeah, but 3-1 in S&D, 1-1 in control. They played 2 game 5s, like we said. They won them both. I want to move them up just because they do have the clutch factor, and I do feel like their slaying is going to improve. They seem to play pretty well together as a team. And, in terms of their wins, yes, they beat Boston and LAG once again, which is why we're being a little cautious with them and keeping them in the bottom of B because they did beat 2 teams that we don't think are the best. But you got to tip the ice. The ice is a big thing to see no matter who you're playing.
It is. Love that 2-0. And we would question whether this team can, win the backs against the wall in a way, or like a game 5, see if they can come out on top. And they did
Yeah.
that twice.
Which is good to see because, like you said, that was our concern. Like this team definitely, when you look at them like on paper, there is a lot of raw talent there. Like I can see them being a good team. It's just like you said, when the going gets tough, can this team win in those clutch moments? It was definitely a TBD, and it's definitely still not like wrapped up. Like, yep, they're really clutch. They can win. It's not definitely there yet, but like they showed this weekend that like they have the makings of a team that could win in the
Yeah.
clutch.
And just from looking at these KDs, I mean, it's kind of a good thing if Paul X is your top KD on the weekend, because I'm assuming Delafay will get more better the next couple weeks.
Yeah, like if Pollux can play at this baseline, I don't expect Estriel to consistently have a 0.74 in hardpoint for the year.
Yeah, that's
Like
just
I expect that to significantly go up. So like you said, yeah, Paul can play at this baseline. The other players can maybe, hit more of their potential. Good things could be on the horizon for that team.
yeah. Excited for Rocker fans,
Yeah, it's definitely the most positive outlook we've seen for them in a bit here.
Yep. So far, so good.
Next team, Brock, is I know they didn't move a ton in our power rankings. They're still in the C tier, but they're a team. My eyes are firmly posted on them. I could see them being a big time riser. I mean, who do they have this week? Not Seattle, the Vancouver Surge play OpTic and Boston. So we're probably looking at them to still be 2-2. They were
Yeah,
1-1. We're probably
most
going to be
likely.
2-2, losing to OpTic. I would say that they're a favorite over Boston. You never know though. Um, but the reason why this team is the team I got my eye on, early in the offseason, you and I were both like, I'm not moved by this team. This team's not good. We kind of
Mhm.
stuck with that. Over the last few weeks that we've been talking about on the podcast, we both are kind of shifting our opinion. We're not like, oh my God, this is the best team ever, but we're both kind of like, I'm starting to see the vision. I think this team could actually be pretty good.
Yeah.
You and I have both been saying that recently. And this weekend, I feel like that was confirmed to me. They took out Miami in a game 5 and they lost to Toronto in a game 5. They went map 5 in both. Overall in the weekend, 04 had a 1.01, Hixie was at a 0.98, Nasty was at a 0.96, and Abuza was at a 0.88. And that right there is the exact reason I'm optimistic about this team. They were
Yep.
500 across the board. They were 2-2 in hardpoint. They were 2-2 in search. They were 1-1 in control. But I thought Hixie was moving this weekend better than I expected him to look, especially in the slaying department. I know he only had a 0.96, but there were some maps where I was like, wow, Hixie is shooting. He had a
Mhm.
0.97 in hardpoint. Um, uh, and a 1.0 in control. Overall in the respawns, that's my concern. I know Hixie can be a good search and destroy player. I trust him in search. I trust him to make the right play. Just a matter of can he slay? And like, I was overall pretty impressed with him.
Yeah, me too. Like you said, you know, Abuza being the worst player on the KD was on the weekend, and Hixie definitely in that map one. Their first map just absolutely moving, and Nasty just very steady at 0.96 1.0 kind of player, very consistent.
Yeah, I expect Nasty to settle on that 1.0 and just be a solid player. I honestly expect 04 to maybe boost that up a little bit, but I expect overall, like most of the players in this team, apart from Abuza on the year, to just be hovering from the 0.95 to 1.05 range.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
then I expect Abuza to be that guy that could be the 1.2. So that's why I was saying, like you were mentioning, that's why I feel so positive about this team. They're able to beat a Miami team that's, pretty solid, and they're able to, go to a game 5 against a Toronto team that we view as a top 4 team right now. And that was with Abuza being, arguably their worst player, like not putting up the numbers we expect. And I don't expect that to last for long. I expect Abuza to start putting up numbers, which is why I'm starting to like this team. If Hixie can continue his level of play that I saw, and 04 can be pretty consistent. We get what we see from Nasty, who usually in general is pretty consistent to his level. But if we can get the normal Abuza, I really like the outlook of this team. That's why I move them up into the 7th spot.
Yep. This team could to be the dark horse.
Yeah, absolutely. I like them to potentially be like a dark horse top 6 team at the first event if things continue.
Yep.
Brock, we got a cluster of teams. We put Miami in 8th. I feel like they had to go 8th. They were able to take out Falcons in a 3-0 fashion, lose to the Surge 3-2. Um, a very good overall weekend from Rencor and Real. Lucky and Metals, and Lucky made, one of the worst plays I've seen in a while on that red card. Search and destroy, basically just like long flanking from B bomb when his team needed help and they had a 4v2 numbers on site, and like he just like wasn't there and he took way too long to get there. Terrible play there, but overall rough weekend for Lucky. But we saw something. I mean, Real with a 1.32 in hardpoint, Rencor with a 1.14 in hardpoint. Like we're seeing, I mean, Real 1.53 in search, like almost a kill per round. In control, they went 2-0 on the weekend. So like we see a lot of positive signs from this team. It's just a matter of can they put it together against when they play, some better teams, some teams with higher slaying numbers. But the Real Rencor duo um, looks to have some potential, which is why I think we moved them up into 8th.
Yep. We're gonna need Lucky Metals to play a little bit better if they want to go anywhere.
Yeah, I expect the numbers for Real and Rencor to come down to earth a little more, and I expect the numbers for Lucky Metals to maybe boost up a little bit if this team
Yeah.
wants to compete.
Yeah. But also, I just don't think this team has what it takes to beat top 3 still.
Yeah, I would agree. Speaking of that, I would say that for the next team as well. I know people are moving them up their power rankings a lot. We moved them up from 11th to 9th. That's
Pretty good.
Boston. Yeah, that's Boston. And I mean, hey, shout out to them. They went to a game 5 against Minnesota, could have easily won that one, and they beat OpTic in a game 5. They beat OpTic in 2 searches. They also beat OpTic in a hard point. So shout out to Boston. Like they did an excellent job taking out OpTic. Like they came into this weekend, it was like, hey, you know what? Put up a fight against OpTic, beat Minnesota. That's a successful weekend. They
Hmm.
actually ended up beating OpTic
Yep.
and putting up the fight against Minnesota. The numbers from the weekend overall look pretty good, where you'd expect. Cammy, Awakening, Snoopy all above a 1, Purge in the 0.9 range, doing the dirty work. I will say this why we didn't move them up more, or at least why I didn't want to move them up more, is this seems like a classic case of the team maybe knows the game pretty well early,
Yeah.
and the second everybody catches up to them, I expect them to come right back down to earth. So I'm
Yep.
being cautious with moving them up too much further.
Yeah. We haven't really seen Cam yet, doing like this well, like in the last couple of years.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe they'll keep it up, but right now it's with how negatively we think about them. It's hard for me to just like move them up. I feel like moving them up just 2 spots is respectful enough because if they continue to play really well, we can move them up more. But like, I mean, this weekend, who do they get? They get Surge and Miami. So honestly, for them, like a weekend that your goal at least has to be to come out 1-1. But like this could realistically be a weekend where they could come out 2-0. They're two winnable games, Surge and Miami.
Yeah. Definitely that Miami match.
I mean, they're a team that like Boston, we didn't expect much out of them, but like, I mean, looking at their upcoming matches, I mean, they've got to be the fact that they're 1-1. They've got to be gunning for a winners bracket, and it's got to happen over the next three. Like, they've got to be gunning to win their next 3 matches, Brock, because they play Miami, Seattle, and Carolina, all winnable matches, definitely, and then they end
Yep.
with FaZe and LAT.
Yeah, those two aren't winnable, really. I would
Yeah,
say.
I mean, hey, we say that, but they beat OpTic, so I guess
Yeah,
they won one that they weren't supposed to.
you're not wrong. So I guess every match is winnable technically.
Yeah. Our next team bracket that we moved them all the way down from the bottom of B tier to the 10th spot, from what 6th to 10th. That's Cloud9. It's such a tough situation. They were playing on an extreme ping disadvantage, and they played OpTic and LAT. Like I honestly expected them to go 0-2 this weekend, anyways. And it's
Yeah.
super like we moved them down, but like I mean, they obviously have an easier schedule coming up considering they already played those two. Like who do they have coming up here for C9? They play Minnesota, Carolina, LAG, Miami, and they have FaZe. Well, so they had to play all the top 3 teams in this split. That's brutal.
Yeah. That's a little tough if their ping situation is
Yeah.
happening.
Like if that is able to get figured out, this team could have a good bounce back. And like I'm expecting like if they end up, winning a couple matches this weekend, we can bump them right back up.
Mhm.
Move them right back up the standings because they are a team I like. But like also like if they continue to struggle, even whether it's the ping issues or not, like this is a team that I feel like Huke would want to go to.
Yeah.
'Cause, like, he has established players like Attach and Sib, and, like, they would wanna pick him up because they know, like, they can trust him, he's a veteran player, like, I feel like this is a team that has to have their hand on that pulse because like, whoever picks him up early is probably getting an upgrade because it means they're really struggling, and I feel like this would be one of the top teams he would wanna go to because, like, if he could join a team with Attach and Sib, that's a team that
Yeah.
he probably believes that he could truly win with,
Mhm.
so they better have their hand on the pulse of challengers and be kinda talking, the Hook route, but it's hard to do anything with the Cloud9 until they fix this issue,
Yeah.
but we got him in 10th.
Yep. I was gonna say we should have known something was up if we saw Attach League in like World Star at halftime.
Yeah. Uh, Brock, then your boys, we have them in 11th, LAG or Gentlemates.
0-2 on the weekend.
Yeah, and they were winnable
Um,
matches. They lost to Carolina and Minnesota.
they were winnable and they fell short.
Linz was frying in their initial HP. Like he overall looked good in the respawns. Kismet, Skies was frying at times this weekend too.
Yeah,
He had,
I
he had a
definitely
vault.
didn't really see that coming out of Skies.
Yeah, he had a vault HP where he was absolutely cooking. I mean, like we know Skies is capable of that, but like the past few years with the players he's had in his team and the way they've been playing, he's just more kind of been chilling, playing the hill, like doing the objective work, and we haven't really seen this side of Sky since the Mutineers days.
Yeah. So yeah, good to see if Skies, can keep it up, or if he'll revert back to his like dirty work kind of play and let someone else shine in a way.
I mean, all the players on the team besides Priesta were hovering like just above a 1. Priesta rough weekend with a 0.87. Um, maybe this is a team that like if things aren't working out early, they could look to make a change to add some more slaying into that role. But like even though we have them in 11th and we move them down a bit, I'm still not ready to panic on this team. Like I still think they could end up being like a pretty solid team.
Yep.
I know they lost 2 matches, and I know like people might not think that's true. And it's only going to get worse from here, Brock, because their next 2 matches are LAT and OpTic.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really see them winning either of those.
And even after that, they play Cloud9, which if everything's fixed by that point, I wouldn't expect them to win that. And then they play Toronto. I wouldn't expect them to win that. And then they get a match against Vegas Falcons. So like if they're 0-6 at that point and they lose that, I mean, this team might be a candidate to make an early roster change simply based on the schedule because like this weekend was two of their most winnable matches.
Yeah. Yep. As Priest gotta play better.
Yeah. Uh Agreed. And then Brock, Vegas. Honestly, not the
Yep.
worst weekend considering their expectations.
Yeah.
We gotta learn how to pull out a sub.
We pull a sub out, help some people out with the sub.
I mean, King of Body, rough. It's kind of what we saw in the World Cup, I believe, as well. But like, I remember Exnid being like nasty, and he had some moments like where he looked pretty good. But I believe they were saying his name is Kicks, Khhx. I believe they were saying Kicks. That kid's got a little bit of a gunny on him. He was snapping this weekend.
Yeah,
He was,
he was pretty good.
yeah, he was shooting this weekend. I mean, he finished the weekend with a 1.24. He was really shooting. Roxas at times was shooting. He had a nice clutch in S&D. Um, Overall, like, I know they played 2 teams that, like, aren't, like, our best teams in Carolina and Miami, but, like, they were definitely shooting back enough, and it's just, like, it feels like if they could, like, get a true sub on this team instead of King of Body and, like, maybe make, like, a two-man change and just keep, like, I don't know, definitely Kicks and, like, either Xnit or Roxas or just, like, put in one more guy that could slay heavy, they could be really good, but A, I don't think they're gonna make any changes, and B, I still don't know, like, I saw a clip of Clay talking to them after a map, and in the clip I saw, it seemed like Clay was, like, talking to them and, like, they maybe didn't speak the best English because like, Clay was, like, talking and they were kinda, like, looking at him, and then they were like, "Oh, okay, yeah," like, he was talking about, like, doing something
Mhm.
mid, and, like, I don't know if, like it didn't seem like they could have just, like, a full-on, like, conversation, so I don't know if they, like maybe their English isn't as good yet, or if they're still working on that,
Yeah.
but, like, obviously, that would be a big difference, like, if they don't know English too well yet, like, they're not gonna be able to pick up a guy that only speaks English, it's not gonna work out.
Yeah. It's just not gonna be no bueno.
Yeah, so, I mean, I like what I saw considering, the team is I mean, we don't expect them to win too many matches, but, like, they didn't just come in and just get absolutely steamrolled over.
Yep.
Like, we saw some, like, mechanical skill there and something to work with, and honestly, this is a team that we can't expect a ton of wins out of, but, like, if we say we see them continue to improve and, start to pick up more hard points here, start to win a search here, start to win, a couple controls because the only map they won on the weekend was, an S&D. They went 0-3 in hardpoint, 0-2 in control, and they were able to win an S&D, but, like, if we see them start to, consistently be able to take maps, like, that's all we're looking for this team.
Hmm.
Like,
Yep.
they're at such a disadvantage, like, they're under practiced, not only this year, but all time compared to all the other players. Like, if we see, like, consistently them start to win more maps, then maybe pick up some matches, like, that's all we're looking for this team as they're probably not making changes.
Yeah. Just getting together, working together, getting better. And like I said, they didn't get blown out. Like, all these matches, maybe the control of the Carolina control. They kind of got 3-0 kind of instantly.
Yeah.
But the hard
But
points for the most part were pretty close. Besides, Skyline lost by like 80.
yeah, and there's some mechanical skill there.
Yeah.
All right, we spent a lot longer than I thought we were going to, Brock, but we'll quick talk about the viewership numbers, and then we will jump into the matches for this past weekend. Uh, so viewership number wise, crazy weekend, like tournament type numbers.
Yep.
We had uh we had LAG and Minnesota as the top viewed match, and then LAG and Carolina as the second most. When you add in, the watch parties and all that, including like Otaga, 204,109 was the peak for Minnesota LAG. Had about 172,000 watching LAG Carolina. The FaZe and LAT match was at about 158 as a peak. Boston OpTic was at about 150 for a peak, and then OpTic and C9 was at about 137 for a peak. About an average of almost 97,000 viewers. Uh, that was about the average concurrence for the weekend. Uh, Insane. The fact that also the best part about this is that OpTic was not in any of the top 3 matches, which, like, is amazing because usually OpTic is just the one that's absolutely dragging the viewership.
Yep.
So we love to see that.
Yeah, especially for the first weekend. I can only really imagine like what majors, even like, and especially just champs viewership to be happen.
I mean, we're just like praying that LAG can figure it out and become a good team. because the viewership they could pull if they were on like a championship Sunday would be insane.
That would be, yeah. So many viewers, from like the Gotaga and fans and
I mean, I
stuff.
like when is the last time like at a tournament or even regular season matches like anything like that where OpTic wasn't like top one, top two most viewed matches or like they were involved in every match that was at the top. Like the only cases would be like a situation where they were like eliminated right away.
Yeah. So it's just very, very cool to see.
It's awesome, and shout out to the whole Gentlemates fan base because that's insane. And also just like the fact that we were almost at like 100K concurrence for the CDL for like the first week uh is just stupid. Like that is insane numbers. Hopefully that's able to keep up with the co-streams and everything. And
Mhm.
Gotaga helping to carry viewership because the dude, I mean, the fan base is going crazy for them. We'd love to see it.
Yep. We just need the team to pick it up and, make a run.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Brock, let's jump into our predictions. Uh First week, both of us were in the positive. That's all. That's a good thing. First day for you was rough. First day for me was also rough. It was probably rough for most people because I would say 95+% of the people out there pick OpTic over Boston and Atlanta over Toronto. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Yep.
I would say that people definitely did. You got hurt because, like we're doing. If you get the match right, it's 1 point. If you get the map count right for the winning team, it's another point. You get to do one match a week where you can triple the points on it. So, like, you get 3 points if you get the team right. Still only one for the map, but 3 points get it right. But it's also -3 if you get it wrong. You pick OpTic over Boston as your one worth 3 times, which was a great pick in my opinion. But then OpTic lost. So you got -3 for that, which hurts you. I'm up 16-6 after the first week, and that was because we roughly had like the same amount of. I mean, you had 4 wrong, I had 3 wrong, but the difference was uh, of all the ones I got right, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 perfect map counts with the winner
Mhm.
out of the 12 matches. So like over 50% of the matches I had exactly correct in terms of map count. I feel pretty good about that. And you weren't too bad either because you got 33% of them exactly right. 4 of them, which is also really,
Yeah.
I mean, getting 4 out of the 12 matches exactly right for map count is pretty damn good.
Yeah. The dang optic in Atlanta.
Yeah, even if you don't get the correct map count, if you just like if OpTic just wins, that instantly swings you to getting 9 points.
Yeah.
Like it was or actually it swings you even more than that because you got -3. So you would be all the way up. That was a 6 point swing. You'd be at 12. Like that's how much closer it would be if OpTic won.
Yeah. So we got some work to do this week, definitely.
Yes, and you get the veto advantage. You get to pick your you can pick your 3 point uh match before I can, since you are currently losing in the standings 16-6. But Brock, let's jump into these predictions. The Battle of LA is first. LAT, LAG.
Ooh.
I mean, we know who the better team is, obviously, but as all of you that have been watching the CDL for any time know, LAG owns LAT. They always beat them.
They always find a way, and now I'm
Are
kind
they
of
gonna find a way
scared.
again?
No, I don't think they gotta find a way this time around with the new God Squad. I'm gonna go
Yeah.
3-0 LAT, and I'll put my 3 points.
You're doing the 3X on this one.
I hope they win. Please, watch. I don't pick LAG, and they're gonna win now.
All right. I mean, I'm going to pick an LAT 3-0 as well. I mean, the curse could be real. I mean, the curse is really, really real because like last year when they beat him and stuff, it was like, the LAT team for most of the year last year was like not like amazing. They were a somewhat decent team online, especially.
Yep.
Like, I mean, this year they're top three for sure, if not number one right now. And LAG is looking like, a bottom two team, bottom three
Mm-hmm.
team. So like if they do it now, it's even more insane. I'm going to go LAT 3-0 as well, though.
I like it.
Cloud9, Minnesota.
This one's a
Uh,
little trickier because we don't know the situation with Cloud9 still.
like if the ping's fixed and we have a more even match in that way, I could see Cloud9 getting the win. Minnesota, they are 2-0, but they had to win like 2 close game fives.
Mm-hmm.
Do we trust that to continue going their way the whole time? Where are you leaning on this one?
I think Minnesota wins another game 5, and C9 still has a little bit of that struggle with that ping.
Okay, you think game five from Minnesota, the ping? I hope the ping issues aren't still occurring because that would suck.
Yeah, I just I was listening a little bit to like Lamar. I was like, I don't know how they're really gonna fix it within like a week or whatever.
It's terrible though. It's just absolutely awful.
Yeah,
That's
just
an
it
issue.
makes no sense, like you said, an issue like that occurs.
Yeah. It. I mean, I don't even know what else to say on it. It's just it's ridiculous that it's occurring. Like it made no sense. It was like, and they like OpTic was tweeting about it. I think it was like shottzyy that was talking about it, and he was basically like they gave us the two options. Like they wanted us to play on like the Salt Lake server, but we said no to that. Uh,
Yeah.
which like for OpTic it makes sense. Like if they're giving them the choice to play on one of the two, like OpTic's of course going to play on the server that's better for them. Like you can't blame them. But the
Mhm.
fact that OpTic has a choice to choose that and just like make the other team's ping way worse is also kind of stupid. Like it
Yeah.
goes both ways. You can't blame OpTic for wanting to play on the server that's better for them, but also you got to look at the CDL and be like, why the hell are we having a team play at such a significant ping disadvantage when there is a server out there where things could be more even? It's just, it's a mess. It's like, this is why we wish we could have LAN at all times because like we won't have to deal with this issue, but just a mess. We hope it gets figured out. But that being said, Brock, I think I'm thinking and hoping it's going to get figured out. I think the C9 team is going to come with a vengeance, and I think they're going to win this match 3-2 in a game 5 over Minnesota.
Okay. That'd be a much needed win for C9.
Yeah, it would be a much needed win. I think Minnesota's little run of like iciness in the back-to-back game 5s takes a little bit of a hit here. Brock,
All
we got an
right.
interesting match for the next one. Miami Boston.
These two
They're
teams,
kind
they're
they're
kind of
kind of roughly
same.
in the same spot in my head. Yeah,
Yeah, they're like the same.
it's like I see the flashes, but I don't know if I want to like believe it. Like there are some positives, but also like I'm really cautious with these teams. I mean, I'll go first in this one. I think I lean towards Miami. And I'm gonna say 3-2 again because this one is like just one where I don't know where to go. But like when I still look at the two teams, I have more faith in Miami being like they're 1-1. I have more faith in them being like a legit, like 8th place team, fighting for champs than I do with Boston still, just looking at the rosters. And I liked what I saw from Rencor and Real. And
Yep.
I think we're gonna get a little bit better performance out of Lucky this weekend. He's gonna step up a little bit. So I like Miami to take him down 3-2.
I will go Boston. I'll go opposite 3-2. Close match. They
Yeah, that's
pull it
fair.
out.
Fair. It's a true toss up, especially early in the year.
Yeah.
The next one, Brock, is maybe a little more interesting than we thought it would have been before we saw the matches last week. OpTic
Yeah.
versus Vancouver. I would say OpTic's still definitely the favorite, but like if we see a weekend that's a lot better, like if Abuza improves his play and the other guys are able to keep up what they did, like Vancouver is alive for an upset here. I don't think they're going to get it. I'm going to pick OpTic to win 3-1, but Vancouver is certainly alive for an upset. They're a team that I feel like is going to like keep themselves pretty consistently in series and make things tight for a lot of the good teams this year.
Yep. I'm on board with you. 3-1, and I think for Texas, and I think Vancouver gets the search.
Yeah, it could definitely be the case there. Moving on to Saturday, Toronto versus
Ooh,
the Las Vegas Falcons. They got a brutal draw this week. Falcons after going 0-2, they get to play Toronto and FaZe.
they get
I don't
a
see Toronto dropping a map to them. I'm going 3-0 Toronto.
man. As much as I want to pick the Falcons here, I should not pick the Falcons.
No, don't throw yourself overboard. You can throw yourself overboard with LAG picks. Don't do it with. I mean, but you can't really even. I mean, if you, I guess you could pick one if you want, but LAG gets LAT and OpTic this weekend, and Vegas gets Toronto and FaZe. So
Yeah.
I guess you could
Uh,
throw yourself under the bus, but
3-0. Toronto just not much better than Vegas. Just a straight up talent diff.
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know.
it truly is.
Nothing more to say really than that.
Speaking of talent diff, OpTic versus LAG. Granted, like there are some players here though that can be OpTic killers. Like Skies specifically has always seemed to perform very well against OpTic. Priesta is a guy that at times when he was on good teams tends to seem to perform pretty well against OpTic. Even a guy like Kismet in more of the CDL era, tends to perform pretty well against the likes of OpTic. Lins obviously doesn't really have much of a history with that, but like these are some guys that tend to be OpTic killers and tend to raise their game against OpTic at times, specifically Skies, I would say, especially. I don't
Yeah.
think it happens here though. Shockingly, I do think they make this close. Like I have a weird feeling this one's going 5. I'm gonna pick OpTic to win it 3-2 in a game 5. Like I have a weird feeling these guys are able to extend the series against them and make it mixy with the veterans on that team.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna pick Optic as well. I'm gonna go 3-1, but I do think all the maps will be pretty close.
Yeah, I feel like 3-1's probably the most likely scenario for that one. Brock, we've got my boys
You gonna pick them?
No. uh, I do think they'll keep it close though. I think they'll take a map. I think it's gonna be a competitive series. I like it. I like Atlanta 3-1 over Carolina. I would love to pick Carolina. I hope Carolina wins this, but Atlanta is even though they're 0-2, they are a better team. Um, then Carolina still like it's going to take a lot to convince me that Carolina is better than Atlanta, despite the records being 2-0 and 0-2. Um, but I think Carolina. I think they're going to actually take. mm, I think Carolina maybe takes a search, but I think like if they lose 3-1 while taking the search, like I think they'll keep the hard points close. Like I think they'll be over 200 in both hard points and they'll have like a chance to win, but FaZe will just make the winning play. So I'm going FaZe 3-1, but I think Carolina keeps this as a competitive 3-1.
Yeah. Um, I don't really don't know if to go here. Do I just copy you or like? I don't think it's going 5. Or do I?
You never know.
Um,
Atlanta, maybe they're struggling a little bit right now. Maybe they're ironing some things out. You never know.
yeah. I'm gonna go. Let's go Atlanta 3-0. Oddly enough, they come back and they're all like pissed off for losing the last 2 weeks. Last week
I
twice.
Yeah, I mean, with the way Atlanta typically tends to go in the regular season and the fact that they're playing Carolina and Vegas, I could see this being a 6-0 week for Atlanta. I really could see that.
Yeah, but I mean, I believe lean more towards your score 3-1, 3-2 in a way because we're kind of not too bad at all.
Yeah. Last match Saturday, Brock, Boston, Vancouver. I'm still not, like I said before, still not overly sold on this Boston squad, and I am starting to get more and more sold in this Vancouver squad. I think we see a bounce back from Abuza, especially in this series, and I think Vancouver takes them out 3-1. I think they beat them 3-1 here. I'm really starting to get on board with like thinking this Vancouver squad could be like a 7-8 seed with some decent upset potential. I think they're going to keep a lot of series very competitive this year. I'm starting to like the team.
I'm going Vancouver, but in the game 5, 3-2. They edge it out in game 5.
All right. We started out. We went two different on the first day, and then we basically just went chalk the second day. I mean, the problem is it's like there's a pretty heavy in all matches but the last one. Like Toronto's a very clear favorite over Vegas on that second day, OpTic over LAG, FaZe over Carolina. I mean, those are heavy favorites. The last match is maybe a little bit more of a toss up, but I would say Vancouver definitely is the favorite in that match, but not like heavy favorite.
Yeah.
And we've got Toronto, Miami to kick off Sunday. That's actually a good match. Like Miami should be a competitive team against most teams. We view Toronto as our fourth team. Can Miami pull off the upset? I don't think so. I go Toronto. I like this one to go 5 though. I like Toronto to win in a game 5 against Miami, like a 6-4 game 5.
Ooh, I was thinking the opposite. I was thinking Toronto 3-0 for whatever
Think so?
reason. In my gut, I think Toronto's just gonna
Gonna
kind
roll
of
through
roll
'em.
for whatever reason. My gut's telling me to.
It's a 6-0 weekend for Toronto for you then. You have them beating Vegas 3-0 as well.
Yep.
All right. I like it.
Ooh.
This is where my 3 points is going, Brock. My 3x is going here.
Yep.
Atlanta versus the Falcons. I thought you were going to use it on this, so I was going to use my 3 on LAT. But I'm going Atlanta 3-0 over the Falcons, stomping. I'm putting my 3x on this one because this does feel like the biggest lock of the week for me. Like I feel like if because of the whole LA curse, like if LAG beats LAT, I will be shocked, but like I won't be like complete. It's a Sky's revenge game against Hydra. It's a Kismet revenge game. I won't be like completely shocked. But like on the weekend, if you showed me all the matches and said which one you had to put your life on the line for one match, I would put my life on the line for FaZe to beat Falcons. So that's why I put my 3x on this one.
Yeah. I probably give me Falcons over FaZe. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes. That would be insane. I hope it happens. It'd be so the timeline. You imagine if Atlanta loses to Carolina, it's like, okay, they're 0-3. They got their freebie against Falcons and they lost to Falcons. Could you imagine the timeline?
That'd be a good tie line, that's for sure.
It would be hilarious to read through.
But I kind of feel bad for Vegas here, especially Atlanta went 0-2 last week, so they're gonna be coming out with vengeance. So 3-0,
And
fastest
like,
series probably of the year, seems like.
I mean, and we like, it's like, Falcons, we expect them to come in and struggle. They're on a big learning curve. They lose their first two against teams that, were more winnable. And then it's like, oh, you lost your first two against teams that were a little more winnable. Here you go. Here's Toronto and FaZe, like two of our arguably top 4 teams.
Do they get 100 points in the hard point? That's the real question.
Hey, they got like almost 200 on Rio at the World Cup, I think, against FaZe
Did they?
on land. Yeah. Uh, Carolina versus C9 is the third match of Sunday. This is a great match. If everything's fixed for C9, this has potential to be a banger. I think it has game 5 written all over it, and I think Carolina takes it. I got to go with my boys 3-2.
I like it. I'll go opposite. I'll go with C9. Game 5 wins.
C9
Yeah.
game 5.
Yep.
I like it. I mean, I hope they start to figure it out. I don't want to see this team like mightily struggle and get our boy Mac dropped or anything.
Yeah. I don't want it to be like the pingy shit, the reason why people are getting dropped.
Yeah,
In a way.
it sucks.
Yeah.
LAT Minnesota, Brock. Minnesota, they definitely have a chance to be 3-0 coming into this match, considering they play C9.
Yep.
I don't think it's going to be enough for them. I think LAT actually, like, I feel like this, even though I pick C9, I feel like there's a pretty good chance that Minnesota comes into this 3-0, and I think this is a reality check for them. I think they're like, okay, we're 3-0. This is a measuring stick game for us. Like, we play LAT, like, let's see how we measure up, and I think LAT is going to stomp them 3-0.
Yeah,
Like,
they're gonna be.
I think it's gonna be like, Minnesota, hey, like, let's see how we can compete with them. If we can like keep it close all series, like we might be a top team. Like maybe we can even beat them, and like we're really feeling good about ourselves. And I think LAT is gonna come in and be like, no, 3-0. Like I think I'm talking like 250 to like 110 hard point. Like a 6-2 in the search and a 3-1 in the control. Like I think LAT is gonna very quickly roll through them. 3-0.
Yeah. They're gonna be like you said, a reality check. Like, damn, we just played that team.
We're 3-0. We thought we're maybe one of the top teams, but it's like, okay, LAT's in a different level.
Yeah. Yep. I'll go 3 as well.
Okay.
LAT, that is not Minnesota.
Damn, sorry, Minnesota. We just like we're like, hey, you're having a good year. You could be 3-0. Reality check dominated by LAT.
Yeah, it just I don't know. I feel like when Minnesota is just gonna get down against LAT, they're just not gonna be able to get back up.
Yeah, I could definitely see that being the case. All right, that's our predictions for the weekend, Brock. We had hey, we had some different picks this week. Although last week, like the only ones that we really got wrong were like because Atlanta and OpTic lost. And you
Yep.
decided to pick Falcons for fun. But like this weekend we picked two different on Friday and two different on or one different on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Different map counts, but you know, things are starting to get more solidified. Although usually like in week 1, like we do a lot worse typically
Yeah.
in week 1 because it's like so tough. But like I feel like overall, like we did pretty well for it being like. Can I see what we did last year? Let me see. I think I have a file here with what we did. So like last year, week 1, you got the entire first day wrong, and I got the entire first day right. That's hilarious. You picked Boston to beat FaZe match 1 of the year last year.
Jesus.
Obviously, before we knew Boston imploded, you put 2 points on Boston to beat FaZe.
They get 3 0'd?
I don't remember. I have it that I got it correct at 3-1, but not correct map count. So I'm guessing, yeah, they probably got 3-0'd.
Yeah.
Um,
That was a wild
you
pick for me.
you picked LAT over Seattle, and Seattle ended up winning that one, which is funny because we know how bad Seattle ended up being
Yeah.
early on. And then you picked OpTic over NYSL, and I picked NYSL. I remember that one was Game 5, Round 11. OpTic
Yep.
lost it. And the second day, you ended up over the last 2 days. You went 6-2, and I went 4-4. So like overall in the day, you went 5. What was it? 11 matches. You went 6-5, and I went 7-4. So I mean, overall, I guess we didn't do terrible. Like the first week is always the hardest because like you have an idea of where you think teams are, but you truly never know until you actually see the matches, like see them play for the first time.
Yeah.
I feel like we were pretty spot on considering this year the only ones we really got wrong, besides you picking your LAG and Falcons bias picks just for fun. The only thing either of us got wrong was by picking OpTic or Atlanta, which is like I mean, I expect those teams to win a lot of matches this year more than they lose.
Yep.
That's gonna do it for this one, though. If you guys enjoyed, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. If you're on the audio platforms, drop a follow, drop a 5-star review. We're really excited to be back into the matches. It makes the podcast just so much easier to make every week when we have constant action to talk about, teams to talk about, potential roster moves to talk about, like just everything ongoing. So we're gonna keep trying to bring you random new formats and just different stuff throughout the year, and we hope you guys continue to enjoy it. So thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you in the next one.